Okay, Commissioners, the next item is item number 11. It's an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 167585, block 875, lot 65, 18 Gramercy Park South, located within the Gramercy Park Historic District, a residential hotel building designed by Murgatroyd and Ogden and built in 1926-27. Application is to install sidewalk planters.
Good morning, Carousel of Landmark staff. 18 Gramercy Park South is located on the corner of Gramercy Park South to the north and Irving Place to the east. The application is to install new tree planters at existing tree pit locations, as you can see here, along the Irving Place facade, and as well as smaller planters at the residential entrance along Irving Place and the main building entrance on Gramercy Park South. And the architect is here to present the application.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Nitsky. I'm a licensed landscape architect working for Robert A.M. Stern Architects. And we are here to describe the planters that we're proposing for the 18 Gramercy Park South address. This is for both the Irving Place streetscape as well as directly in front of the building. As you can see here, the existing conditions that were just previously discussed. The trees that were previously planted in these pits did die. We have discovered that the reason for their demise was the elevated temperatures in the tree pits and around the pavement surrounding the tree pits due to an underground steam vault that is adjacent to this area. Some of the temperatures were reading 10 degrees warmer in the soil, even as the soil was slightly frozen in the surrounding tree pits to the north. Even at 30 degrees air temperature, the tree pits were about 40 degrees in the middle of the... That would not be appropriate for this neighborhood.
Very interesting, though.
The manhole covers that are adjacent to the tree pits that are in the pavement read about 135 degrees in the dead of winter, which was advantageous to snow removal this year. But however, the radiant heat from the pavement did go towards the planting and elevate the temperature of the soil and ultimately kill the trees. So our proposal is to not put the trees in the ground, but raise them up in raised planter beds. This will allow for shade and canopy of street trees along the street that will not only benefit the visual appeal of the street and the building, but also benefit the people that use this neighborhood. And this is the facade along Irving Place, where we've got some very attractive raised planter beds that would elevate the tree above the pavement level. This is the facade on Gramercy Park South. You can see here, these planters do have little feet, so the bottom of the planter is also raised above the pavement level, which also is a cooling technique for the planter. These planters do exist. These were placed here for marketing purposes, and we are requesting that we get approval to let them remain. This is the existing streetscape and our proposed streetscape plan. We are not proposing to change the location of the tree pits. We'll keep the tree pits located just where the previous trees were. And a little more detail about the trees along Irving Place. They would be a decorative ornamental tree, such as a flowering cherry tree, which is something that is already seen in the neighborhood, so it's in keeping with the current character of the neighborhood, along with some evergreen shrubs and some flowering ground cover. As you can see here, this is the suggested planter along Irving Place here. The color is selected to blend in with the architecture of the building. The planters on the north, which are existing, here we go. Here, and this is on Irving. This one here is matching the color of the pavement. They are existing. They are appropriate for the north face of the building.
Yes, Michael.
Has DOT and Parks signed off on this?
That is the next step in our process.
And would these qualify as street trees if they're in planters? I mean, is that, I guess that's not our problem.
Right.
Yeah. It's just that I don't know if it'd be approvable, because I know that DOT is trying to increase the amount of pervious coverage on the ground, and they're like expanding the tree pits to do that.
Right.
And this is showing a reduction in the tree pit.
So there are planters on 19th Street for trees, but my question is, the flowers that you put in the fall, I guess it was, the white flowers, seem to do fine. How come? Why was that?
You mean in the planter
In
beds?
the planter beds, yeah, not there. In the planter beds where you had to remove the trees.
Beds, you mean?
Yeah.
So to speak.
Those are annuals.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will not come back every year.
Right?
I believe that they survive better than the tree because their roots don't go down as deep. The soil temperature increases the further you go down into the tree pit.
Right, but I'm just going back to Commissioner Goldblum's question about replacing what is now soil with whatever that material of that planter box would be, rather than keeping it and furnishing flowers there on a rotating basis.
Excuse me, if I could just introduce myself. It's Valerie Campbell from Kramer 11. We did speak to DOT. We will be applying for revocable consent for all of the planters. And although DOT in the past has sort of discouraged planters, they've changed their position, and we were informed that this would be an application that they would look favorably on, and we meet all the location standards. Prior to these tree pits being put in, which was just done in conjunction with the sale of the building, this was sidewalk, so it's really returning to the historic condition.
Right.
These were the previous planters that were on the streetscape. Sorry.
And that didn't work out? That you had they had planters previously, right?
Yeah.
And they got rid of them for the planting beds, and now, so
Going
why
back.
didn't those?
Well, one thing that I could say in regards to these trees that are in the old planters here is that these planters were very small. And as you can see, in relationship to the tree here, the roots don't have any room to expand. And when you have a small raised planter and the roots don't have the oxygen and the soil mass that they need to survive, the trees then die, and you need to keep replacing the tree every 15
So you're not
years.
talking about trees in a planter
No,
in this,
not
it's
that.
just
Yes.
flowers.
Nothing.
No, they're all
Oh,
saying
they
the
are
trees.
talking about trees.
So then what's
Planter's
the?
different than the previous ones.
Good question.
But even there,
I
I
failed to
don't
mention that. No, that's perfect. The size of the new planters here that we are intending to put trees in are a much larger size volume for soil mass for the trees. And also with the correct selection of trees that will survive, that have a better survival rate in a planter, raised planter, will guarantee a better success for plantings, both trees and for flowers.
How do the planters compare to the tree beds right now? They're smaller than that?
They
They're
are
not-
smaller.
Okay.
Yes, they are smaller. It's very difficult to find a tree pit that is large enough to meet that same size requirements. However, this is not too much. Let's see if I can go back. Let's see. can see here, this is the size of the current tree pit here,
Much smaller.
and
Yeah,
this is
smaller.
the size of the raised bed.
5 by 10 versus 2.5 by 5.
That's big.
But it's large enough for a tree, is
It
that
is,
right?
is definitely large enough for a
Okay.
tree.
Yeah, I have found that so many of the choices,
Okay, are we going into
Oh, sorry.
discussion?
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
All right.
Yep.
Any other questions right now? Okay, are there any speakers on this item? Any speakers?
One other
Yes,
question. So
Roberta.
the temporary that you're asking to be made permanent, I suppose, that's for flowers only, and it was for marketing, but now, so it will just, you're just keeping it for what reason now then? So it's not for marketing that you want it for,
Aesthetics in front of their building?
okay, well then that's what I.
Aesthetics are one, and the more plants you can have around a building for the neighborhood, surrounding neighborhood, the better.
Yes, Diane?
I was just going to say, obviously, they're all ultimately removable if need be, though. I mean, any of these can be removed, they're just planters, so.
Okay, yes,
Just a
question?
practical suggestion, two departments you may want to check with. One is DEP, obviously the storm runoff with the bioswale.
Exactly.
Subdivision, that's a very good point. And from practical experience, if you have rodents in the area, once it's raised or planted, and the soil, that's the area to watch out for. Unrelated to this, but Department of Sanitation and Health keeps a close eye on this.
All right, any other questions? Are there any did I ask whether there are any speakers on this item? Okay, no speakers, and I don't think we received anything from the community board as well. All right, I think we can, if there are no issues, we can close the hearing. And did you have questions? You were going to say something.
yeah. There's a third bed, right, further towards 19th Street. Yeah. So the third one, if you go to the plan, maybe, oh, there's the elevation. That third one, the one furthest on the left, actually, the tree's actually still there. Is that tree suffered, or is the heat the same issue there?
I did measure the temperature in that tree pit as well. The temperatures were slightly elevated. The tree looked like it was a little stressed. I think it would be beneficial to the tree to remove it in that case, because it is going to decline eventually.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Okay, I think we can close the hearing.
Wait, but one more thing.
Yeah, you have a question?
No.
Okay. We can
Are
close the
we
hearing.
on questions still?
No, but we can close the hearing and can continue to discuss.
Oh, very good.
Okay, all right. Yeah, go ahead.
The other planters that you used for sale, for marketing the building, are really strange proportion. Everything in relationship to this building has kind of strange proportions. So I'm just, these planters, I thought were very small on the facade of the building, and they're zinc, and there seemed to be no other reference to that material or that scale or that height. So I have a feeling that these new planters you're proposing are also strangely too small for that very wide street for Irving Place. But the beds that were originally designed were actually the right size. So I'm just wondering if there's, and yet if you were to match that size in the size of a planter, those would be very tall, right? They would have to be very tall. So it's a little, my sense is that they should remain beds and have flowers replaced on a regular basis.
All right, other comments? And I think that, I understand that. I think that these flower beds are not historic. I think there seems to be, the idea of having trees, I think is a positive thing, including in this district. And it's also, it's not uncharacteristic of the district. I think that there's a real practical issue of retaining these beds as is, and I think the proposal to put these flower boxes or planters is also consistent with what you see in the surrounding area. So I think it's appropriate to do that. I think the scale of these new planter beds, while not as big as the flower bed, I think I would say there's a sort of a balancing act here, because if you go as big as that and as tall, I think that has a different impact. So I think the fact that it's scaled back from what's the vegetation bed right now may be a good thing, given that there's some height. And I think in terms of the colors, it seems very consistent and reads with the building as well. And I would just also point out that ultimately it's reversible, which is it can go back to its original sidewalk at any point. Other comments? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I agree with what you were saying. I think that from a public policy point of view, in the bigger picture, I think it's unfortunate that the amount of pervious ground is being reduced at a time when we're trying to deal with stormwater issues. But from a straight preservation point of view, it's completely appropriate by the standards, that we've worked with for a fairly long time. It's reversible, it's appropriate, it's not historic. So, I think that it'd be better if they could figure out a way to keep the quantity of pervious soil, but that's not our purview here.
All right. Other comments? Okay. We have already closed the hearing. Roberta, do you want to read the resa?
In matter of 18 Gramercy Park South, Gramercy Park Historic District, application is to install sidewalk planters. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed tree planters at the sidewalk will replace existing non-functional tree pits and reestablish greenery along Irving Place, that the tree planters will sit within the footprint of the existing tree pits, which will be replaced with bluestone to match the existing sidewalk paving, that the texture and finish of the cast stone tree planters will blend in with the decorative limestone elements of the facade, that the small planters along Irving Place and Gramercy Park South will feature an aged lead finish that harmonizes with the existing bluestone paving, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the historic district.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?